Alright, we should be live, starting super late today, but we're back. We're working on Green Goblin. Technically Norman Osborn, but nobody cares about him and his weird two-tone hair. We are entirely here for this crazy dude. And we are at 78 cards. We need 18 cuts, and everything left in the deck belongs here. And that has been true since we got it down to like 120, probably higher, somewhere in the 130s, I think. Everything in the deck is technically on a sublist at this point, I believe. Or is supposed to be. I see you, Lion's Eye Diamond, hanging out there. Even though I haven't reassigned you to the Mana Rock section. That's particularly good as a Mana Rock on the turns we're not going off, but once we are, it's very, very helpful. So, yeah, everything left on the list has its spot, and now it's just about getting rid of the worst of the cards we need the least redundancy in. Is where I'm at. Like, what are the actual worst cards that still win me the... Or, what are the actual worst cards that still technically belong on this list? And then we get rid of those. And once we've gotten rid of 17 of them, the deck is done. Just going over everything we've got down here. I could technically get rid of Confounding Conundrum. It's good for disrupting the types of opponents I expect to play against. But we are definitely a combo deck. It does cantrip, though, which is nice, but it always costs a blue mana, even if we discard it, whereas all the other things are free. So there's that. I don't even know if it was picking up all of those noises. All the hemming and hawing I was doing. I forget how sometimes the microphone doesn't want to. Yeah, I suppose disrupting opponent's strategies is far less important to this deck than maintaining my own, so Confounding Conundrum can go. Yeah, this is where I'm at. I'm cutting stuff that is perfectly fine in the deck. Fortune, Wedding Invitation, Offer You Can't Refuse, Energy Refractor. Ellen. Crackling Wit. Maybe Raoul can still go. So the upside to Raoul is that if we are going off, then Raoul is definitely going to hit 10 loyalty, and we get to draw 3 cards. He might even hit 11 loyalty for that matter. And if we can get Displacer Kitten down, we can blink him. But after he's done his ultimate, alive by 1, and then we get him back with his starting loyalty, and then we keep casting spells. So that's the ideal situation, is that we have him out and play and he didn't die, so now we just get to... Also, the Prowess Otter token is not nothing. If we play him on a setup turn and just make the Otter. That's definitely not nothing. And technically, if we brick, he can also -3 to draw me some cards and then discard some cards, which the deck, if the deck already has Norman out, is going to be thrilled by that. And if it doesn't have him out, well, maybe that's the incentive I need to cast him that turn and try and go off if I've discarded the right cards. But yeah, just the Prowess Otter token can get huge and become a threat unto itself, which is very easily chump blocked, but it depends on what the opponents actually have available. Similar to Near Div, where her attacking can just be fatal, and I do have Wedding Invitation still on the list, and that is not an insignificant card when my random prowess creatures can have like 30 or 40 power. Or other similar cards like Treeborn Frog, Psychic Frog. Treeborn Frog, yes, that well-known and beloved Magic the Gathering card. Great in Aristocrats decks. No idea what I'm talking about. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Wrong card game. On the console, Withering Torment. Which I don't have on Arena. I actually lost to somebody playing Deafening Silence against me, where I couldn't cast more than one non-creature per turn on turn 1. It's just like, oh, that's not good. And like, all I have is Cyclonic Rift, and I have to find Cyclonic Rift and cast it as the first thing before I do all the other stuff, besides casting Norman. So, yeah. Yeah, not happening. Gravestone, Shadow of the Goblin, Ageless Insight. I played Urza exactly once in Brawl, where he did anything, where he started tapping my artifacts for blue mana. It was actually really strong when I did do it. I had him in play, and I had the turn where I was going off, and I was running low on mana, and I started tapping my cantripping artifacts to help cast Paradoxical Outcome. And that got me right back into it and won me the game. I believe that either won me the game or that was the game where Arena decided that even though I was taking game actions and there's a separate timer for losing the game if you eat up too much time, that no, we're going to start the timer fuse and it's not going to stop just because you're doing stuff you're taking way too long. And it's only when stuff is resolving that it stops for a half a second. So, all the stuff that you're casting and choosing modes on and everything, we're just going to keep counting down, and then the spells are going to go on the stack, and the fuse is still going to run, and then it will resolve, and then I will immediately get priority back, and the fuse will keep running. It's like, no, I'm taking game action, stop it. Alright, let's get rid of Confounding Conundrum, get us down to 77. Just need to cut 17 cards. How hard could that be? Just pick 17 cards at random and that aren't my commander and get them off of the list. Yeah, I don't want to lose any more of these. If anything, I wish I had room to cram more of them in there. Alright, real question. How many blue spells do I have for Force of Will in the deck? Alright, Mana Drain's 1. Force of Will can't pitch to itself. Mind over matter is technically 2, and if I'm comboing off already, I might not need mind over matter. So if it's in hand, but the other stuff is happening. Also, it needs to be in hand. There's a lot of incentive to discard my hand to various things in this deck in order to make sure my stuff is working. Maybe we do lose Force of Will. It's the free counter spell that isn't too often in this deck. Like, specifically this deck, because I actually want to be empty-handed at various points in time, because it makes the file and... It makes file, Infernal Tutor, and Riddler better. So... yeah, I think we get rid of Force of Will, because I literally cannot hold on to cards in this particular deck in order to be able to pitch them. So... yeah, I'm too incentivized to go empty-handed or to discard all of the spells from my hand anyway. So, better to just ditch the card entirely rather than keep it for the corner cases where it's relevant. Yeah, as I'm starting to count cards, I'm like, wait a minute. Even if I have these cards in my hand, the way the deck plays out, I am insanely incentivized to discard them. So... do I dare get rid of Grave Robber? I already got rid of Conundrum. Do I dare get rid of Grave Robber and just go, like, so all in on my own combo that I really can't disrupt opponents' plans? Like, just let them have their graveyard shenanigans? If any deck can get away with this, Grave Robber can. So... or, I'm sorry, Norman can. Sorry, if any deck can get away with losing the Grave Robber, I think Norman can. Which is something that I did not think I would be doing anytime soon. Okay, speaking of getting rid of cards that I never get rid of, we did cut Bolus's Citadel. So... how do I feel about Sensei's Top? So the thing about Sensei's Top is that as long as I can discard it, I can always cast it from the graveyard and draw a new card. So if I top swap, and there's things that I can be doing with it because of the other cards, like File of Galadriel and Riddler especially. If I draw while I'm empty-handed, I actually get 2 cards. So top swapping gives me 2 more looks at another cantripping artifact, and if I find one, I can draw the top, like, I can discard my hand, cast it from the graveyard, draw top and something else because I'm drawing 2 cards because of the other thing. Yeah, no. I think top stays in. Because top, and it also interacts with any of the when I cast an artifact spell, draw an additional cards also. Or cast a spell from my graveyard, yeah, all of that stuff. So top can potentially draw me multiple cards by existing. So in conjunction with all of my other stuff, like, by itself, it's weaker than the other cantripping artifacts, but it lets me set up in the early game, and then when I'm going off, as long as I have any of the other enablers, it's actually drawing me multiple cards at the exchange rate of, but now the top card in my deck is this, so I need to redraw it, but then once I've redrawn it, it's also multiple cards again, so I kind of want to redraw it. If I'm getting like 2 to 4 cards each time, and one of them is guaranteed to be another 2 to 4 cards each time, then I think that's way better for me than not having access to it, so. That's the last of my water from lunch. Fairy is difficult to cast, but I still think worth it. Just to force the opponents to have something. Otherwise, I get to have the free roll turn where I just get to do whatever. Flash into Fairy, untap, and then win target game. Really. At the very least, it becomes nearly impossible to interact with me. You need, like, morph creatures already down or activate abilities. Cycling with triggers. To stop me, and that's kind of where I want to be at. I keep saying everything's on a list. I think legitimately everything, because we had a couple cards that are more about disrupting opponent strategies without necessarily falling into the counters and removal section, and they're all gone now. Bolus's Citadel is gone. Looking at Weftstalker Ardent right now. Don't know. I don't know if I can afford to cut any more win cons. Afford to cut any more win cons from the deck. Like, I need to find something that will actually win me the game at some point in time. I have cut a bunch of colorless sources from the deck. Maybe Glaring Fleshraker isn't good enough anymore. Because I cut Mindstone and a bunch of the other colorless mana rocks from the list. Because colorless mana is not the choke point of this deck. So we have Mana Vault, Soul Ring, Grim Monolith. We do have the Talisman still, because they can always tap for colorless. I don't know how many of the lands are going to tap for colorless, though. We might be able to lose Glaring Fleshraker. Workshop does not work with Fleshraker because it can't cast him. Ancient Tomb is one. Coliseum doesn't. Those don't. Those don't. No. No. Probably cutting Reliquary Tower. It's not needed. I no longer draw a ton of cards outside of the turn that I'm going off, so I don't need to hold on to a bunch of stuff. So for ease later on, I'm going to cut Reliquary Tower. Oh no, Cavern of Souls can do it. And no, and that's Command Tower. Okay, so yeah, I think Glaring Fleshraker needs to go then. No longer can serve his function properly when I only have like 10 colorless sources in the deck. Alright. Oops. 14 more cuts. only been going 20 minutes. Oh my god. This deck. Is it gonna be Joyra because Researchcraft is better? Researchcraft is better, Near Div is better. Secrets of the Dead. The Fairy's Ageless Insight is harder to interact with, and I'm still getting the card draw off of it. Yeah, I'm thinking about the times where I didn't have one of these and I suffered from it on Arena, but I also didn't have access to the Research Craft because it's a commander card. Secrets of the Dead. So maybe we can lose Joyra because she's worse than them. Artist talent was really strong whenever I played it. Like, Joyra was very good in the deck, but I think because we have access to similar effects that are cheaper, I think she's the worst one left on the list. So, I think we cut Joyra. I'm genuinely looking at Mind Over Matter right now. Quad blue 6-drop is not happening on anything that isn't a setup turn, and then it has to live an entire turn cycle. The same is true for Scourge Familiar. It's so strong when it's in play, though. Like, out of all of the cards I could possibly have, Mind Over Matter might be the one that makes it easiest to win. Like, if I ever untap with Mind Over Matter in play, the opponents are going to need a whole lot of counter magic to keep me from winning that game now. Or stuff that bounces Norman or kills him. They have to get Norman out of play almost immediately, or Mind Over Matter is going to get them killed. So. And depending on what I have access to, like, Mind Over Matter also might let me get the mana back to protect Norman while I'm at it. Because I don't. The cards have Mayhem if they were discarded this turn, not if he was in play and they were discarded. So I can actually, while he is on the stack, untap lands to generate the mana to cast counter magic to protect him if need be. So. Yeah, I don't think I can cut Mind Over Matter. That seems crazy. Like, actually crazy. Bye, Joyra. It was nice getting to draw an extra card off of Joyra by casting Green Goblin or Fleam on Arena, rather. So, I mean, technically, same difference. wish I had a tiny bit more experience playing with builds of this deck that I have with Fleam, because there are cards that are on the list that I think should be on the list that maybe they don't need to be, but it feels like they do. Like Teferi. Teferi is one of those ones where I'm going to have to play with him and see if he resolves or at least baits out the counter spells so that I can go off the subsequent turn now that removal and counter magic and whatnot has been used against him. Well, they wouldn't be able to use removal against him because he'd be in play at that point and now nobody can cast things. Yeah, if you don't counter Teferi, you can't kill Teferi. Unless you have an onboard trick or something like an activated ability. I guess technically anything that can kill him by cycling somehow. Things that cycle don't normally straight up kill a 4 toughness creature as part of their cycling effect. Like, even the decrees with their massive cycling costs don't necessarily kill Teferi, so... Underworld Breach stays, Thassa's Oracle stays. Fervent Mastery has been good every time I've cast it. Hermit's been decent. Corrupting Counter Magic. Fortune, Wedding Invitation, Offer You Can't Refuse, Energy Refractor, Nimbus, File, Bitter. Looking at Bitter Triumph because I don't technically need this as the discard outlet. I have it on the list because it lets me discard a card and can kill a creature or planeswalker for 2 mana. So it made it onto the list because of that. But shaking my head at it because that is not... I need it more so that way I have a cheap removal spell than anything else. Killing a creature that won't let me put things into the graveyard or something similar. Gotta be worth it. Alright, I'm sorry. I'm gonna need a break. I'm going to be right back. Hope Okay. Sorry about that. Hopefully I remember to edit that out on the VOD. Hmm. Maybe I do still cut Raoul. Yeah, maybe I do still cut Raoul. I'm desperate for cuts, and he kind of needs everything to already be going well. He does make for an excellent finisher, is the problem. Once everything is going well. But he still can't finish the game by himself. So, at end of the day, as strong as Raoul is, I don't think we can keep him. Which is a real shame. Like there are a bunch of things you can do with Raoul that would be really, really good. Mostly just getting the Storm Emblem the first time, but like I said, if you can blink him while comboing off with like Displacer Kitten and continue to get emblems, it's a lot easier to kill when Tendrils of Agony's storm count is effectively tripled an entire table's worth of people, but at the end of the day, we do still have the Thassa's Oracle combo, so I just don't want to get to the point where that is my actual win con and I should just have Demonic Consultation in here, so that way I can pull that one off immediately. While I'm doing all of this other stuff. Then just lose, like, the tendrils and the whatnot. Like, at that point, I kind of want Lab Maniac back in, because I can definitely draw my entire deck. Like, Lab Maniac and possibly Jace would need to come back in as the other win cons, and at that point, we're doing a completely different deck. We're not even storming off, so yeah, if I were that all in on Thassa's Oracle, there's a whole bunch of things I would need to change around. Would let me get rid of a whole bunch of things, though. Uh, I think end of the day, that's not really where I'm at, so. Also, I kind of hate Thassa's Oracle still. Even in a deck where I'm using it and it is the main way to win games of Magic, I'm still not thrilled at Thassa's Oracle's existence. It's not as bad as Strip Mine and Brawl, though. That one, like, I'm not saying somebody needs to get fired over it, but this should negatively impact their employee reviews for letting Strip Mine into Brawl. Seems like a poor choice. I'm sure they'll get commended, though, for all of the bundles that included Renin 6 that they sold on Arena. Because I have to believe that one was intentional. You know, oh hey, we just happen to have Strip Mine on the bonus sheet for Edge of Eternities. We just happen to think that Renin 6 would be really good in our arena-only Eternal format, so. Gee, who could have predicted that Strip Mine plus Renin 6 would be good in heads-up formats? What are the odds? I mean, this is the same company that put original Saheeli and Beladar Sovereign in the same set and didn't even notice, so there's an argument to be made that this was completely unintentional, despite the painfully obvious and intentional seeming way they were released back to back. But you could argue that they just thought that Strip Mine would be a decent card to put on the bonus sheet because, one of the classics, and they already had a ton of money on there, so they didn't need Wasteland. And, since they. And meanwhile, the person that's responsible for the other thing is like, well, we got all the fetches and whatnot on Arena. Maybe the Arena Eternal formats would benefit from Ren and 6, and they just happen to be released back to back. And then they were like, ooh, if we ban Strip Mine immediately, everybody who just bought the thing for Ren and 6 is going to scream at us that they only bought it because we had Strip Mine and they wanted to do the Ren and 6 Strip Mine Brawl build. So maybe we should let them play with it for however many months it takes to destroy the format. Because I play against that thing like every other match, and I've beaten it a few times, but most of those times involve it not finding Strip Mine, and the other times involve stifling their fetch on turn 1. So, not the, like, stifling their fetch into countering Ren and 6 with Wash Away, and then possibly countering their fetch again with, like, the 3-2 Merfolk. I'm blanking on the name right now. But, yeah, Tidebinder. Yeah, that's not a fun game of Magic for me, and the only reason I don't feel bad is because they were playing, Ren and 6 Strip Mine, so, who cares if they had fun? Then again, I build decks like this, so, who am I to argue? But, I have. I like to find the decks that are worthy of this and play it against them, not just like every rando I can find and pummel them into the ground. But Brawl doesn't allow for that. I can't go, okay, what's everybody else playing? Okay, those all seem like, like somewhere around tier 4 to CEDH level commanders. I'm gonna break out my big guns for these games. Versus, oh no, these all seem like mid tier decks. Okay, I've got some mid tier, like, low 4s to like mid 3s. I don't really build below that normally, naturally. Like, I just want to play good cards in all my decks. So even when my overall deck is kind of janky or laid back and casual, it's still going to have a lot of the enablers. I'm a big proponent of enablers in formats like this where I don't like to see them get banned, like when they did the whole, like, the big ban, the one that basically everybody flipped out over in Commander. I was like, I don't like these bans because I don't like banning enablers. Like, I did not like Mana Crypt going. I would prefer to have the option to put Mana Crypt in because it really depends on the quality of the deck you're enabling a lot of the time, how powerful a card like Mana Crypt is. Like, obviously, if you play a Mana Crypt, you are 2 mana ahead of everybody else, and that is a very significant thing in a lot of games. But if you use that mana to play fun, janky cards that aren't really, the most efficient or the best cards in the game, then you're basically using your, like, $200 artifact to break even instead of having to run like the other cards, and you only get that card, like 1 in every 10 games or so in the first few turns of the game. So I don't really care that you're enabling your Axelrod Gunnersman deck with Mana Crypt and um like Dockside Extortionist I can kind of get behind, but not really. And Jeweled Lotus, same thing as Mana Crypt, Like if you use Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt to get the mana advantage to get, like your 7 mana 5/5 that deals an extra point of damage to your opponent whenever one of their creatures dies, if it was dealt damage by this thing, I think he had trample. You know, if you're doing that, like, more power to you. I do not care that you're running these broken mana rocks. And for the CDH players, I don't care because, you know, the decks are supposed to be as powerful as possible. I've literally played vintage. You do not phase me with your Black Lotus and knockoff and your extra Soul Ring. So, but yeah, I've always been of the opinion that the enablers are not the problem. It's what you're enabling that needs to go. Like Nadu. Nadu made sense because Nadu was dumb and very dumb, like impossibly dumb. So I don't mind seeing things like that go. I'm rambling and I'm not making very many cuts. We're at 72. Okay. What else am I going to cut from Norman? Can I cut 2 more cards, get him down to 10 cuts to finish him? That way, the next time we do this, we are actually there. I think the biggest problem is there's no straight up Vindicate in my color combination. Like, I really wish I had a Vindicate effect so that I could lose things like Withering Torment and Vandal Blast and just go from there. Active Negation definitely stays. Mana Drain should stay. Cyclonic Rift, offer you can't refuse. The biggest problem with this is that I'm looking at the removal and thinking about my Brawl games, but my Brawl games are, do you have removal from my commander? Because if not, I'm about to goldfish you out. So, the biggest problem with that is that there are no other free counter spells that I can actually reasonably access at this point. Also, I can't, like, none of them can be cast for their alternate costs if I have mayhem them or if I've discard them, unless they can also be cast from the graveyard naturally. So I don't get to, like, I don't get to put in something like Thwart and just bounce all of my islands to hand to cast it if it's in my graveyard. So, and the affinity for artifacts counterspell is 2 blue and like 5 or 7 or some crazy number. So that one's not going to work because it's still going to be double blue to counter anything while I'm going off. Yeah, at that point I would be better off with counter spells that are like blue and 2, most definitely counter the spell, but you know, whatever the other drawback is, like Vex or something. But then again, I'm already running enough stuff like that. Wait, does that mean I still have to pay the blue if I discard for Mayhem with... No, because I have permission to cast it from my graveyard. Wait, what is the... Hang on. I need the exact wording on Fierce Guardianship. Like, the exact wording on Fierce Guardianship. Okay. I think... Then... Oh no, I can cast it from my graveyard for its Mayhem cost. It would cost a blue if I discarded it. Huh. Because I'm not casting it for its mana cost, I'm casting it for its mayhem cost, which is equal to the mana cost, but does not actually let me ignore it. Hmm, interesting. Alright. So that's something to keep in mind for my free counter spells. Yeah, I knew that about. I realized that about Force of Will and whatnot, but I did take me too long to register that those like Pact of Negation works because it costs 0, so it is actually 0 mana to cast. So we can cast it from the graveyard for 0 mana. So Pact of Negation is the best one. Protect my combo with. So yeah, if I have to discard Fierce Guardianship or Deflecting Swat in order to get the extra cards, I do have to keep a blue or a red available for them if I want to be able to cast them. I still think I want them because until I have to discard them in order to get other cards to work, they will protect my combo, and the opponents are going to be highly incentivized to immediately kill Green Goblin if they can. So I should be able to get one or both of them out of my hand almost immediately, and then once I have, there shouldn't be a whole lot of opportunity for opponents to kill my guy where they could have killed him before and chose not. They basically have to know that I have these cards and that I will have to discard them eventually and make them cost mana in order to cast, and then not have that mana available, and all of those factors when I don't even know what I'm about to draw. Like, good for them if they guess correctly at that point. So yeah, they should still be fine because they should still be 0 mana from my hand when I need them to be. Force of Will, less so. I still think I'm okay with that one, but mostly because I don't have a ton of blue cards in the deck to begin with. Come on, we're at the 50-minute mark. There have to be 2 cards I can cut. I can cut. Like right now, the worst augment card on the list I think is Ageless Insight for the same reason as Joyra, in that it's 4 mana, not 3, and I can get it down to 2 mana, not 1, with all of my cards. Quantum Riddler is blue and a colorless to warp it in. It's 2 blue and 3, but being able to warp it in for 2 mana combo turn puts it about on par with all of the other ones that would be 2 drops. I don't want to cut Ageless Insight though. Like, you need some number of the augmenter cards in play in order to actually pull off the win. Because I have bricked off after drawing like 10 or 15 cards because you just hit a land pocket every once in a while. It's commander. There's 40 lands in the deck. The idea that like 6 of them are together is obnoxious, but it's not as impossible as it is in a 60 card deck that only has, like 23 or 25 lands or something. You have, you know, 60% more cards, but also 60% more land because of that. Becomes a lot more realistic for like a certain section of the deck to actually just be a handful of lands that all got clumped together. Had to be in your deck somewhere. And drawing more cards is just the easiest way to burn through that fast enough to actually still win the game. Yeah, I can't cut any more of these. I don't even. I wish I could get the ones that I cut back in. Because those are the things I most need to draw when I'm going off while trying to find my combo pieces. Like, if I can't win the game right now on the spot, I want to draw more of those so I can draw more cards, so I can get the game to a winning position. Is Burning Vengeance my worst win con left now? I think it is because the other ones all deal 1 damage to each opponent, whereas this deals 2 damage to any target. Technically, Burning Vengeance and Tendrils of Agony are my worst win cons still on the thing. I would be much better off with all of my stuff just dealing a point of damage to each opponent every time I do the thing. So that way, if I do the thing enough, I just win the game without having to cast another spell. But I do need the things already in play before I start at that point becomes the biggest issue. Burning Vengeance is kind of in that category though, like it needs to be in play before I start, so Tendrils is better than Burning Vengeance at least. Alright, I can talk myself into that. Which gets me down to 71. About to hit the hour mark, but I have a little bit I can edit out, and I did ramble a bit, so let's find one more card. I feel okay cutting. Could actually be Grim Monolith. Like, one of the main reasons to leave Grim Monolith on the list was for, for Glaring Fleshraker. Because again, colorless mana is not the deck's weakness. It is nice that I can suddenly get 3 extra mana for nothing, but getting mana of any color would probably be better. It's just really hard to pull that one off. Most of the 2-drop artifacts either tap for colorless, come into play tapped, or you don't have as much control over the colored mana like Felwar Stone, and sometimes they do all three, right? Right, Star Compass? So I could see it being Grim Monolith only because it costs one more mana than Mana Vault to start with. So if I get it in the early part of the game, it costs more mana, so it's less likely to be good for the setup turns than Mana Vault is. Like, I would almost definitely rather cast a Talisman or Arcane Signet or any of the other ones or Grim Monolith at that point. Unless I'm planning to use the Grim Monolith on another setup turn in order to run out all of those, but then I don't have the Grim Monolith mana, so probably not helping as much as I would like it to. Alright, sure. Cut Grim Monolith. Honestly, I think I'm at the point, too, where we're going to cut Mishra's Workshop because I can't afford to have a land that doesn't tap for any of my colors. And casting the cantripping artifacts early on is not actually that helpful, because I don't have any of my other things in play to benefit from casting them. So the only real reason to run them out is to try and find the discard outlets early on. So, which will be nice, because then we don't have, a $1,000 non-basic land on the deck list anymore. For the people that can't afford it, don't have a playgroup that allows for proxies, and feel weird about downgrading the deck a little bit. I don't think it's a serious downgrade, though, if the other two things are true. Like, if you don't have access to it and nobody's doing proxies, then you're probably not playing against people who have all these cards. And if you are and they're being jerks about it in a casual, as long as it's not for like a tournament or anything, if there are prizes, then sure. But if you're just playing casual games of Commander, I don't think the game benefits from me having a $10,000 deck because of reserve list cards, and you have to play against it with your pre-con with some modifications. Like, that's not really particularly fair. So, and it's not fun for me either to beat up on you just because I have a bigger collection to work with. So that's always been my opinion on the game anyway. Alright, so we brute forced it down to 70. Still need 10 more cuts. This deck is brutal. Alright, so we'll call it there for right now. I'll probably be back on later doing some limited. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.